After you have created a line drawing of your plant or item from nature that you chose, make sure that you have mostly filled the space. You don't want to have it be too tiny. You want to, because we're going to be printing these, so you want to have it be a good amount of space. And you are going to get a piece of styrofoam. You need to be careful with this. This is our printing plate, so any damage to it will print and you'll get that damage in your project. The first thing you're going to do is tape this in place because we are going to try to transfer our design onto the styrofoam. So I'm going to use a little bit of tape. Now this is temporary, so I don't want to go crazy with the tape, but just a little bit of the tape. On two of the sides, it should be enough. The next step is to use a ballpoint pen and trace your drawing to transfer the image and make sort of an impression into the styrofoam underneath. You have to use a good amount of pressure. You may notice as you're drawing that you're slightly ripping your paper. Be careful not to totally rip it, but that's okay. As long as you are carefully tracing. If you trace wrong and you miss your line, that will transfer. Once you have traced it, you have to make decisions about things that are smaller. We are going to be cutting this out, so anything that has thin, like a stem, will be very fragile. This flower, I could sort of ignore my drawing of the stem and just have the flower part. Also, I had recommended not to have things cut off or cropped off. The stem will be cropped off, which does sort of limit when I print where I place that. I'm going to try it and see what it's like. And the nice thing about the printing plate is I could always kind of cut that part off if I later on decide I don't want it. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to peek. Without untaping, I'm just going to carefully peek underneath and make sure I can see my design. Okay, it might be hard to kind of see it in the video, but you should see an impression of your design. Kind of check it out, see if there's any lines that you're missing. You have one last decision to make before you untape this. We're going to be cutting these out, so you have to decide, are you cutting out the exact border, like the outside of this, or do you want to redraw a little bit of an extra border to cut around that? If I were to do that, I would just kind of gently draw out and trace a little bit of an edge around my flower. And that would be the line I cut out, so there'd be a little kind of space around it. That's really personal preference. I like it just like this. I'm going to cut it out just like this. Since it looked like it transferred nicely, I'm going to carefully remove the tape. I'm going to keep my drawing just in case. Now, I can kind of see everything, but when I print this, I want those lines to be really deep. So I'm actually going to very carefully trace again. Okay, so I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to retrace these lines again, making them even deeper. Okay, now that I've traced it and it feels pretty bumpy, like it would make a good stamp, I am going to carefully cut this out. Now, you do not want to bend this because any bends will make a crease that will print. You'll see it in all of your prints. So the way that you should approach corners is you go into the corner, don't try to cut it out in one piece. I'm going to, for example, cut a larger shape out first. Okay, and I can cut into these corners. nice and slow and carefully. Once you've cut it out, all of these little pieces should go into the garbage and you have your printing plate. You can now decide if you need to deepen up any of the lines, retrace as needed. In order to put your name on this, on the back, very light pressure. If you press too hard, it'll make an impression. We don't want that. Very light pressure with a Sharpie. Write your name and class number. And just give that like 30 seconds to dry, and then you're good to go. And the next step is to start printing.